Can you raise your hand if you are a Republican, Democrat, Independent? Does the way that you identify racially impact your politics, or specifically how you plan to vote this election?
Absolutely.
How so?
I'm not going to lend my support behind someone who does not support people who look like me.
I don't think he sees me as who I am.
Former President Donald Trump.
Yes.
And what about the rest of you?
I just don't think that Kamala Harris has anything vested in the air finger quote black or Hispanic experience in so much as it would be identified by anybody that lives in those communities.
You're saying you don't think that she can help black or brown people?
No, I mean, going to Howard don't make you black.
A conversation that quickly turned to this moment in a July interview at the National Association of Black Journalists.
I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?
What did you think when you heard those comments?
Highly offensive. I mean, I think probably every multiracial, mixed race, biracial person has had the experience of someone else telling them that they are not something enough. I think it's kind of triggering, right?
I think it's entirely Kamala's fault for running her campaign, her terrible campaign on identity politics. She was the entire time focusing on her identity and not what Americans actually care about. The rising cost of living, inflation, immigration, and wars all over the world that need to be ended. And Trump is only attacking his political opponent, just like he has done before.
I think it is impossible to be biracial in America, and I think that it requires that you're covering all bases at all times, and it requires constant recognition of both identities. And I think when Donald Trump says stuff like that about Kamala Harris and implies that she's like picking a race for political advantage, it's tapping into an incredibly familiar sentiment that I think everyone on this panel can understand.
Marie and Adul, as Trump supporters, when you heard that comment, as mixed people, how did it register with you?
Well, my first thought was, that wasn't very well thought out. At the same time, though, when I heard it, I didn't hear it as an attack on blacks or Indians. I heard it more so of him commenting towards identity politics and the appeal that some take to play up one side of their race over the other.
Exactly. Trump is not attacking blacks or Indian or Hispanics or anybody in this clip. Trump is just pointing out that the Democrats are focused on identity politics and not actually what Americans care about. Nobody cares about your identity politics. Honestly, that's not what matters the most to most people nowadays.
Adul, I see you nodding your head.
I agreed with him. I didn't know she identified as black because everything I saw was first South Asian, first Indian. There's none of that identified as black.
Regardless of her parents, I mean, she was born in this country and she identifies as a black person in this country in an American way, in a uniquely American context.
I've never heard her identify herself as a black woman.
She said multiple times she's a black woman.
I've never heard it.
But I'm black. Yes. And I'm proud of being black.
Politics sometimes becoming personal this year, with mixed-race Americans having representation on both tickets.
I don't agree with anything J.D. Vance has to say. I mean, almost nothing. But I think it's incredible that we've gotten to a point where the Vice President of the United States can have a wife named Usha Chilikari and a son named Vivek. That doesn't mean I won't vote against him in November.
Honestly, Kamala Harris is just a DEI hire. She was hired as the vice president just because she's black. And that's why they choose her, not because she is competent or anything. She is probably the worst vice president in history, if you ask me. And that's very unfortunate that you would hire people for any job position, especially as a vice president, just because of their skin color. Honestly, that's sad to see, and just to appeal for a certain category of voters who would identify with her. It's very sad. It's very sad. Honestly, it is a failed strategy, and the 2024 election just pointed that out. Focusing on identity politics is not the right thing to do if you want to win any election in the future, thankfully. Let's hear about this a little bit more, why identity politics failed.
I think to a great extent, it's because the tech billionaires, they want us all fighting with each other. They want identity politics down here. They want men hating women and women hating men, because that means people like Elon Musk just get richer and richer. The real problem in society right now is class. It's not identity. But it doesn't benefit our leaders for us to want to think that. So instead, they get us, it's bread and circuses. They want to get us all fighting down here.
Totally agree with what he said right there. Class is the most important. You have the elite and you have the average American who can barely afford to live decently in this country. It's sad.
One of my sons, after the result, said to me that Trump was his hero. And upon discussion, it became clear that he, as a young teenage boy, doesn't think there's anybody speaking to him or representing him. My boys have all constantly being told in school about how the evils of masculinity and how terrible men are. And obviously that breeds a fair amount of resentment. We've just become such a really small-minded culture that does demonise masculinity.
This idea of being out of touch, this concept about identity politics, has there been too much of a focus on that, do you think?
I think people are playing into identity politics. But at the end of the day, it's not necessarily the person, it's how you connect with people, how you can understand what they are going through in life and how you can make their life better. And it's not just about the present, it's about the future. You know, if your children want to have a good trade or if they want to go to university, they should have these opportunities in Australia. And you've seen the Prime Minister address these issues through, you know, the reduction in HECS. You've seen it in the free TAFE places.
But he's still going to be depicted as being too obsessed with pronouns, for instance, or too obsessed with the voice last year. That's what we're hearing.
Well, I think everyone learned a lesson from that. And everyone
What's the lesson?
Well, I think the lesson is what people want to talk about is what's happening to them sitting around that kitchen table.
Totally agree. Stop focusing on identity and pronouns and gender and focus more on the bigger issues that we are facing today, such as inflation, such as the world being at war and illegal immigration everywhere, not only in Australia, but also in America and in Europe as well.
Young men are reacting against this sort of real identity politics, which leaves them feeling a little bit lost. You know, there is an issue for men at the moment, and I think that we have to not mock them for it, but take it very, very seriously, because there is a sort of a reordering of gender relations where men used to bring the money to a relationship. Essentially, you know, they used to bring the money and the sort of earning power and the stability and strength to a relationship. So we do need to work out how we can help men overcome some of these issues and adapt to modern times. And at the same time, we need to help women sort of find their place where they are no longer condemned for both being, you know, what they should be and looking good as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, nowadays, that's not possible anymore. What she said right there, that men used to provide for their families, that's not possible nowadays. With the rising cost of living and inflation nowadays, if you want to provide for your entire family and be the only one in the relationship that's working and bringing in money, you have to be part of the 1%. You have to be making over 400,000 a year, every single year, if you want to provide for your family, your wife, and your kids. That's not possible, so that's why men and women both have to work and try to make ends meet. It's sad to see, and it's only going to get worse from here. Hopefully, Donald Trump will be able to do great things during his presidency and try to fix some of the problems that we are all facing today. Right now, we will see and report it all right there on this channel. Let me know what you think about this in the comment below this video. Thanks for watching, and as always, I appreciate you being here. I can click right there to watch the next video, and I will see you there. Bye bye.